And now, here are your hosts, the Schnitzel Boys.
That's the confidence we need from our U.S. boys heading in to the final World Cup qualification break. Perhaps, unless a playoff is afoot. But we're entering. Well, unless, do you have any other MLS things you're dying to mention?
Please go for it. This is
so we got USA. We got Jesus Ferreira on a hat trick.
This is the angst. The angst. I mean, right? The angst. The angst. The angst. The angst is
so that's something I've always been curious about. Angst is a word that people use in English all the time, and it's a German word, Angst. And they don't mean the same thing. They have two different definitions.
It's true.
Angst means, Angst just means I'm afraid.
In Germany,
I'm afraid of something.
Fear. Yeah, it's just the word of fear.
I'm afraid of something. Yeah. Angst means it's kind of fear-based. Angst means there's a loadedness. It means there's some sort of, what does it mean? It means there's some sort of added pressure or some sort of reputation or stigma. Maybe stigma?
It's more dread, right? It's a more sort of a philosophical dread.
Yeah, I guess that makes more sense. Philosophical dread is the way to put it. So angst means there's a real angst about this philosophical dread. Because I was hoping to qualify by now, but it's okay. We still have 3 games. It's not the end of the world. If we lose in Mexico, which is likely, I mean, we beat them 3 times in a row. We're not going to beat them 4 times in a row. If we do, that'd be amazing. But if we don't, then that means the miracle didn't happen. We have to win at home against Panama. That's the one we got our eyes on.
That's the big one.
That's the big one in Orlando.
Okay. This has been the buzz on Twitter. So, what is your take? How much rotation do you play? Do you start anybody in Mexico?
Yeah.
What should Greg do?
What should Greg do? WWGD. What would Greg? WSGD. What should Greg do? I think he should play a half B team against Mexico. Now, what I mean by that is, we lost Serginho Dest, and just yesterday we lost Brendan Aronson.
Yeah, Brendan Aronson
was big loss.
Brendan Aronson was it was kind of, there was a mystery a little bit today. At some point they said, he was going to be out. Then it was like, he's training.
But Twellman broke the news, and Twellman's usually pretty on point with news like that. So Twellman's out. It's just a terrible luck because it happened, I think, in warm-ups on the last Salzburg game. It's like, oh man, you really? I mean, anyway. So we're without a couple key players. So against Mexico, I would play probably a regular back line. I'd play, Zach Steffen or whoever. But as far as our midfield goes, I would put Kellen Acosta in there, not Tyler Adams, because Kellen Acosta loves playing against Mexico. And I'd probably put maybe a Gianluca Buzio, maybe a Luca De La Torre in there. And then I would put maybe Musa as well, but not both. I just try to put one or the other. I'm fine with it being a Kellen Acosta, Gianluca Buzio midfield pairing, and then a Yunus Musa or something. And then up top, I would put a Ricardo Pepi in there, because Ricardo Pepi, he's Mexican-American. He's got a real connection to Mexico. I'd love to see him play against Mexican defenders. But then when it comes to the game on Panama, I want to play the prime. I want to play Jordan Pifak. Or Jesus Ferreira with Jordan Pifak coming off the bench. I want to play Pulisic and Reina as the wingers, and then I want to play Yunus Musa, Tyler Adams, and Luca De La Torre in the midfield for Panama, and then in the back line I want DeAndre Edlin, and I want Anthony Robinson, and I want Walker Zimmerman, and the other center back would be someone else, maybe Aaron Long, probably not Aaron Long, maybe Miles Robinson, and probably Zach Steffen in goal. Like my thoughts are, have your tippy top best team in Orlando for game 2. Have a pretty dang like an 8 out of 11 player team for Mexico. Save a couple players for Orlando. That would be my 2 cents.
Okay.
And then Costa Rica on the road, just do a day of call, see who's fit, who's ready to go, and then play those.
It seems like people have a hard time recovering after playing in the Azteca at altitude. So you think you would start 8 regulars in that game?
I wouldn't start. Well, what did I just say? maybe less. Like the front line wouldn't be. I mean, I'm trying to think. I put Ricardo Pepi up top. Yeah, and then the front line, I put, you know what? I also start a B front line. I put Ricardo Pepi, Paul Arriola, and maybe Tim Weah up, or Giovanni Reina or someone up top on the Azteca. And then have a Pulisic come off the bench if he needs to. Have a Reina come off the bench. You know, whichever the tip. So I would have the front three be rotated, and have the midfield three be semi-rotated, maybe a 2 out of 3 or a 1 out of 3, and then the back line. I mean, yeah, I guess you could play Reggie Cannon, but Greg has never done that. I don't think. Like he usually plays a pretty like usually plays his 7 or 8 regulars no matter what. I mean, he doesn't change too much with that. So I would predict. That's what I would do. So it's not 8. Maybe 8 was aggressive. What is that? That's 6. I'd play like 6 regulars, not 8. But yeah, it's Mexico. It's Azteca. It's a big game. You can't throw it. You got to play it.
Well, but the math is if the U.S. beat Panama at home, at least they get a playoff. That's guaranteed. And the playoff also, it has to be said, this time around is the Oceanic.
Yeah, it's against New Zealand.
Team.
Yeah,
so it's against New Zealand, which, no offense to New Zealand.
New Zealand. Yeah.
It seems like that would be winnable. So that really is the game they must win. And the Mexico, whatever they get in Mexico.
Real quick.
Yes.
Real quick sidebar. Yes, you're right. Like that is the game that must win. However, we're expecting. US. We need more. I'm expecting more than 3 points. I'm expecting 5 or 6 points
from the window.
Yeah, from the window. The 7 or 9 would be great, but I'm expecting 5 or 6, and I'm expecting at least 3rd place. I don't think a playoff spot is acceptable with the level of our program and the players we have. That would be unacceptable, in my opinion, for a team like Panama or Costa Rica to finish ahead of us.
Okay, so then what are you gonna do?
Like I said, we're gonna play, and we're gonna win. We're gonna get a point in Mexico. We're gonna get a point in Mexico. We're gonna get a win at home, and then we're gonna get a point or a win in Costa Rica. So that's 5.
No, I'm challenging this.
Or we lose at Azteca, which is very likely, and then we win against Panama and Costa Rica. So, or on the very worst, we tie in Costa Rica, lose in Mexico, win at home against Panama, and then there you go. It's 4 points, but 4 points will do it. Will probably be just enough for us to get 3rd or 2nd spot.
Yeah, probably. I mean, everything has to. Yeah, the math. You could come up with all sorts of scenarios where things. But yeah, like 4 points is probably good enough. And if you beat Panama, then you're definitely in the playoffs. I'm always curious about this like, you see a lot of this on Twitter also, where people are like, oh, this is unacceptable. What does that mean? If it's unacceptable, what are you going to do? You're not going to be a fan.
Fire anymore? The coach, burn down. No, you are going to be a fan, but like, I mean, that's a whole can of worms you're opening. Essentially,
Tom says,
Tom, if we get more than 5 points, I will be stunned. Yeah, I think 5 points is because it's a home win and it's 2 road draws. That will be a respectable performance. Again, I want more because I want more from our program. But the can of worms you're opening. First, before we go into that, I want to go to what I was saying. This is trivia time from your nerdy friend Stefan. It's a trivia time, Bjorn. Beep boop beep boop.
I never
gotta bring my drops.
I usually do not do well with these.
What is the only undefeated team from the 2010 World Cup? There's only one team in the entire tournament that was undefeated. What team was that?
In 2010?
The 2010 World Cup. I
got nothing.
You got nothing? Do you remember who won the Tom? You're also playing. Drop us a line. Do you remember? No Googling though, Tom. Do you remember who won that tournament, Bjorn? 2010?
In 2010? Sure.
In South Africa? In South Africa? It was Spain beating Holland 2-1 in the final with I think or 2-0. No, 1-0 with a last minute goal from what's his face, that world class player who went to Japan later. His name His name has escaped me at the moment. But he but Spain opened that tournament losing against Ottmar Hitzfeld and the Schweiz.
Oh, and the Swiss. Okay.
The Schweizer won 1-0.
Germany lost to
Spain in the semis.
Germany lost to Spain in the semis. Yeah, and the Dutch almost pulled it out because they kind of in the final acknowledged that they were not as good as Spain and that they were going to be dirty, and they almost won.
Nigel de Jong got aggressive red card. So the answer, and the reason I bring it up, because it's very apropos to what we're talking about, the only undefeated team in the 2010 World Cup was New Zealand. They are undefeated in that tournament.
What? Oh,
that's right. Their opening group game were 3 ties. They got 3 points, which was not enough for them to advance. They were eliminated, but they got 3 ties in the opening game. I want to say the great Ryan Nelson, one of MLS's greatest earlier players from the early aughts, who later went to play in England and later was a short-lived coach at Toronto. Ryan Nelson, who's a Kiwi. He, I believe, was a player, if not captain, of that squad. There were players in that squad who weren't even active professionals. Like, they were out of contract for over 12 months. A lot of MLS players on that squad. It was a fun time. It was fun to watch the all whites, the New Zealand national team play. But I want to say they were even in that group with Switzerland and Spain. I think it was a lot of 1-1s and 0-0s, and they got 3 points for limit. So little respect to our buddies, our Kiwis down on the other side of the ocean.
All right.
Little respect.
I think there was a VfL Bochum player on that team, if I'm not mistaken.
That could very well be correct. There was a VfL Bochum player on the North Korean team in that tournament as well. If you remember, so that's where Bochum gets them. So Tom says, yes, I want more as well. We should have dominated the octagon with the talent we have, but we are undercoached. I agree with that sentiment, except I would say I think we're overcoached. Maybe we're a little overcoached. So I want to just adjust that a little bit. The reason I would say that is because I think what's going on, and Bruce Arena has alluded to this, is that Greg Berhalter is coaching the national team like a club. So he's got a real style and a philosophy and player profiles and blah, 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 which is why he calls up his favorites, because they understand his style. But my criticism would be like the style isn't really catching. It's working half at best. And it's clear that when they're playing, they're trying to solve rocket science. You know what I mean? Where maybe these boys ain't PhDs. Maybe we need just a simple man manager. You know, so that's why I say overcoached. Redacted agree with you. Thank you, Tom.
Tom agrees.
You are
with
our number one fan. Yeah, and like you know, but then again, maybe the way Greg coaches it would work. You just need more time. I don't know. It's sort of hard to dissect what's going on. Like we're having results.
Can both of these things be true? I mean, I think it's, you know, I'm how would I describe myself? I'm simultaneously pro Greg, but I'm also, I mean, I also relate to all the criticism. I think that is the knock on him, that he, you know, has this sort of, he's a system guy, which is very hard to do on the national team, and I think that's a legit criticism. But I think also, you know, he's accomplished a lot. Like, the team has had really good results. They've shown up, and also in the scheme of things, I would always sort of caution that it's very difficult to make that transition from the kind of underdog mentality of like, oh, we're just gonna defend, and then hope to score on a set piece or whatever, on a header, to like, oh, we're gonna be a possessing team, we're gonna be a playing. That is just not something that happens that quickly. So I think they've been trying to.
Sorry, you keep going.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna. I would give Greg a little more credit than the average U.S. Women's national team fan. Although I do also relate to this criticism. I think, you know, this time around, I think why no Joe Scally? Why no John Brooks? I don't know. These things. These are. If this goes sideways, you could certainly find reasons as to what
he finally brought in Jordan Pifon. That's his selections aren't perfect, but they're pretty dang okay. Like usually when it's like, how come he hasn't called in Jordan Pifon? Eventually he calls him in. The John Brooks is an exception, and again, something happened. I think John Brooks just isn't a fan of his playing style. I think what happened is John Brooks just isn't crazy about what's going on, but the playing style, and he just doesn't want to do it or something. So he just doesn't do it.
Well,
and I
he
think
said
Greg
that
isn't calling him in because of that.
mean, I think Greg said in his press conference sort of along those lines, like, he's not. He has some weaknesses in the system. He doesn't quite.
Yeah, that's corporate speak. Mark
I agree.
McKenzie doesn't have the same weakness. Mark McKenzie doesn't play. Aaron Long hasn't played a World Cup qualifier in the history of his life. Did you know that? But he's in, and Aaron Long was off an injury, and I love Aaron Long. Don't get me wrong, but it's like when John Brooks is in form. I mean, Wolfsburg are not doing well, but I was in form. I think it's an attitude thing. I think he just didn't want. And we could speak to this a little bit. There's a big clash between German behavior and American behavior. American behavior is all about like, we can do it, and let's be an extra 10% and blah, blah, blah. And German behavior is raw pragmatism, negativity. It's like that numbers don't add up, so this won't work. That's the German mentality. A German person will look right at your face and be like, this isn't going to work because X, Y, and Z. They have no hope. They don't round up like Americans do. Would you agree or disagree with that sentiment?
I think yes.
So for a guy like John Brooks in the locker room, it's just a totally different way of communicating, to people that maybe Greg doesn't want. I don't know. That would be me defending him a little bit.
That might be true.
Yeah.
I would also my other sort of devil's advocate, and I guess I know this. Tom's saying we should have dominated the octagon with the talent we have. Okay. Look at this roster, though. We're missing. McKennie is gone. McKennie is hurt. Sergio Dest is hurt.
Don't get me started. Well, that's heartbreaking.
Brendan Aronson. These are big losses. But now look at the midfield. Who is there? Tyler Adams hasn't played much for Leipzig.
No.
Actually, has gotten very little. Luca De La Torre is in the. Gianluca Buzio. Venezia is getting relegated. He's not really done all that well. I mean, it's like. There's a lot of talent. There's a lot of potential. There's a lot of kids that are in Europe, but these guys are also very young. They're all very, this is not. There's talent, but I think to just expect this team to kind of go wherever they're going and blow everybody away, I think it's a little unrealistic. I think this sort of speaks.
I agree with you a lot because this team is full of a lot of potential. Agreed. Because even like Christian Pulisic's a more senior developed player. He's only 23 or 22 even, and his season's always been up and down. However, my counter to that is this. Right. So we got Greg Berhalter, coach in Europe. He was fired for being too defensive. Coach in MLS. He's like a mod. He's trying to be a little mini Pep. He's like a modern whatever. And then. Look who dominated North America. Look who did dominate the octagon. Canada. Who's their coach? John Herdman. Some obscure journeyman coach who they found, who was the coach of the women's team and just moved to the men's team. Probably doesn't get paid that much. The Canadian Soccer Association is a much smaller organization than the U.S. Soccer Federation. And he's doing the exact opposite of overcoaching. I think he's just a raw man manager. I think he just has his players together and they have a healthy locker room, and he's just putting them where they play. He's not doing anything fancy with them, and they are crushing. The Canadians are dominant. Okay. And Canada's also full of young players and stuff. Kyle Larin, I think, is the highest goal scorer in the qualifier. He's not. Is he more talented than Gyasi Zardes? Maybe a little bit, but not that much.
Yes. The answer
is
really? Unequivocally yes.
What do you mean unequivocally? He played in Turkey. We didn't score. They plays for a small team in Belgium or something. He's not a world-class superstar.
Kyle Larin is a knipser. In a way that Justin Zardes is not. And listen, I am a Justin Zardes apologist, but no, Kyle Larin. I think the Canadian situation is different. They have been terrible for so many years. Expectations are low, and they're riding a wave. I think that's a whole other. Just sort of psychologically, it's a very, very different kind of setup. And give it like 3-4 years, and they're going to also complain about Sean Hurd and how he does.
There was a Timbers. Tom says there was a Timbers player who said the systems were difficult. I do remember a quote like that. I think even
Eric Williamson, or
was Eric Williamson? I believe that's correct. And didn't Jordan Peacock say something like that too? I think Jordan Pifak was asked about it. He said some of that. He said it's like training was very like mental, like it was like a mental gymnastics kind of, and he had a lot of respect for it though. He didn't poo-poo it. It was just interesting. You sort of hear that. Eric Williamson, by the way, had a great year last year. It's a shame he had that injury. I thought he had a lot of potential, but he sort of went off the wayside.
I guess James Sands moved ahead of him in the depth chart.
Hey, that's what do you think about the guy from Raganen called it? He hasn't earned it with his performances.
I was a little surprised, but I think maybe he is going to be, he might be the 6, and he might just be there to play the 6 in Azteca, so that Tyler Adams doesn't have to, and he can be.
Well, I would play Kellen Acosta over James Sands in the 6.
But Kellen Acosta needs to play against Panama as well.
He doesn't. What does he need to play against Panama? He can sit on the bench against Panama.
Who's going to play who's your number one midfield?
Luca De La Torre.
Luca De La Torre in the most important game of your entire qualifying.
He earned it.
He earned it with how he played in one performance against.
I think it was more than one performance. Wasn't it a couple performances? But he's been on point. Luca De La Torre is the starter, I think, against Panama. I would pick Kellen Acosta over. All right, listen. I mean, Kellen Acosta is more experienced, but he's a little bit more up and down. But they play. Luca De La Torre takes the ball up the field and done it very consistently. Where Kellen Acosta has been pretty hit or miss with that.
I completely agree. I loved seeing him and everybody. It's like, but this is the biggest game he's played. At home. What were the games at home against Costa Rica or like what was it? El Salvador.
Kellen Acosta.
De La Torre did not.
I don't exactly remember. I think was it Honduras maybe. I think it was the cold. It might have been the Frost Bowl against Honduras.
I would want to see if I was the coach. I would want to see more of him before I start him in the biggest game of my career.
Yeah, it's a good point. I guess I overstate. Maybe I'm thinking too highly on LDLT. Maybe Kellen Acosta. Maybe it's backwards. Maybe Luca De La Torre will play against Mexico, and then Kellen Acosta will play against Panama.
I think that'd be a good if you really just want to rest everybody in Azteca, which I think that might be the smart thing to do, and you could play James Sands and Luca De La Torre and Christian Roldan in Azteca, and see how it goes. See if you can squeeze out a point.
Yeah, maybe they can. They did it. They beat them in the Gold Cup with a B team just like that. Why can't they do it again? 4 times in a row would be amazing. Honestly, I'd just be happy with a tie. I think that'd be fine. And if they do lose, as long as it's not a blowout, it's whatever. It's kind of expected. It's Mexico at home in Azteca. The pressure's on them too, and we beat them 3 times in a row. I mean, beating them 4 times in a row. I don't know. I don't know if that's on the cards.
That was just the Schnitzel Boys video on YouTube. Thanks for joining us. If you like that one, we've got a couple other ones right over here. And if you like that one, don't be afraid to subscribe, like, and ring that bell.
It's the Schnitzel Boys. It's the Schnitzel Boys.